There's been a mixed reaction to the decision to close schools for 4 weeks starting Monday. Government says this is to protect both pupils and teachers from COVID-19. Well, grade 7 pupils will go on a break for 2 weeks, while matriculants will only close for 1 week. Let's get some reaction now from Allan Thompson. He's from the National Teachers Union. Allan, good morning to you. I suppose it's up to you now to answer all the concerns we've had from people over this decision. Firstly, I suppose many people want to know why this decision over public schools and not private. In your discussions with government in taking this to them, what did this come up at all as to whether it should be only public or public and private?
Well, good morning to you and good morning to the viewers. Well, I assume that, in fact, the expectation was that the cabinet was going to resolve to close all the schools, not necessarily the public schools. But we understand also, if you look at the calendar of the private schools, they are about to go to a mid-term break, so which is almost 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. So perhaps that's one of the reasons that perhaps was considered by the cabinet. But on the other hand, I know also that perhaps there might also be a submission. Remember, the Minister of Basic Education had to embark on a consultation process with different institutions, including the board of the private institutions, of which most of them have been complaining that parents are refusing to pay the school fees because they are of the view that there is no work that was done by teachers in the private school. So it means private institutions will have to reduce the price. But I'm not very sure. Those are just the speculation because there is no specific submission that was once raised in our meeting with the minister about not closing the private school. But when you are reading between the lines, you can just see at what might have influenced the reason and the decision thereof.
Well, lots of concerns raised over this decision. We have the Human Rights Commission this morning saying that this closure is regrettable and unjustifiable. We also, they're talking about, you know, those who would be losing so many scheduled school days. I spoke to Western Cape Education MEC Debbie Schaefer. Her view continues to be that children are safer at schools. The other concern is, what do children do? Parents have not been able to plan. Where do they keep their children? Those who actually have to go to work. The parents have to go to work. So did you take all of this into consideration when in asking government to actually do this?
Oh, yes, of course. Well, if I can maybe start with the issue of the Human Rights Commission raising a concern about closing of schools. You see, we were very disappointed when we learned that the Human Rights Commission was opposing our request for schools to be closed, because we thought perhaps the very first institution that was supposed to support us is the Human Rights Commission, because as the National Teachers Union, we also wrote the Human Rights Commission complaining that we have many schools situated in rural areas, many township schools that could not reopen. When all other grade 12s were open, when all other grade 7 were open, they could not meet, their schools could not meet the requirements or be compliant to COVID-19. So that is why then they could not open. And those learners have been deprived their right to education. And there's nothing that was said by Human Rights Commission in terms of forcing the department to devise ways and means, give alternative education system to those schools. Unfortunately, now when we've requested the department to consider closing schools, they are now complaining about schools forfeiting their right to education. We believe that this is a very good decision. Not only that is going to protect the teachers and learners, but also it's a chance for the Department of Basic Education to rectify the mistakes that are in the system out there. Because like I've said, we have schools that are without water, which are also offering matric. We have schools that are without toilet or inadequate toilets. We have some that have received mobile toilets, but have been taken back by the service providers because they've never received compensation from the department. And the Human Rights Commission is not saying anything about that. But to the case of the parents who are worried that when they go to work, where are they going to put their children? No. We need to remind each other that teachers are not child minders. When learners are going to school, they go to school strictly with the main intention of educating them. not because we are looking after the children because parents are not around.
But I don't know how fair a comment that is, Allan. I'm not sure how fair a comment that is, because parents, I mean, you understand that, you know, unemployment parents can't afford to actually just not go to work now. Also, this is not something they had planned for at this time. Many have had to go back to work, and not, of course, yes, teachers are not babysitters, but this would have been a time where kids would have been at school. So parents who can't afford extra care, who can't afford to have somebody there now to watch over their children because they hadn't planned. This is a time that their kids would be in the care of school and of their teachers.
That is why then there is this arrangement which was announced by the president of the country, that we have already made arrangements for the school nutrition program to continue as a result, which means there are those students who will be going to school so that they still receive some service. Some of the principals of schools have already started making such arrangements. We want to alert again parents that teachers are there to give support to them. So it's very important that there is a continuous communication. Hence, we even said to the minister, it doesn't mean that when we say schools must be closed, it means that there will be no form of interaction between ourselves as teachers and also with the parents. So we encourage that those who are having problems, they need to communicate with us in our schools so that alternative arrangements can be made. But the bottom line is that the decision is informed by the fact that we are in the schooling system. We can see when the children are not safe. And we believe that the safety of the children is a responsibility of us as teachers and also as parents, because we are also there in the schooling system as parents of the children.
So you're flexible on that. You're flexible on making a plan for those who absolutely have no other option. Very quickly, before I let you go, Allan, the President spoke about the extension of the school year going into 2021. You know, just concerns also what happens then to the host of new kids who would have come into the schooling system. How do we navigate that? Did you go with solutions to that as well in your talks?
Well, for the kids who will be joining the schooling system for the first time, obviously they rely on those that are within the system to exit. That is why there is a main focus on grade 12 so that they can complete their curriculum and write examination maybe somewhere in the beginning of the year, that is January, February, and get perhaps their results in February and March, and then go to tertiary institutions. This does not only affect the basic education, it also affects the higher education because we still have the final year who must also exit so that those that are doing matric will be able to join higher education and also make a space for those that will be joining a grade R and grade 1 for the first time. So that is why then we are saying it's a situation that we cannot avert. It's not a matter of just writing examination for the sake of writing it because it's the end of the year. We need to make sure that we have covered everything that needs to be taught. And learners will be ready to write examination. Hence, the issue of grade 12 and grade 7 is being prioritized because those are the most critical areas which we need to allow an exit for other new people to join in the education system.
And just one more very quick point. I mean, we've been told that we're going to have several peaks, Allan, not just one. This is the eye of the storm. Yes, it is going to be a peak time, but we're going to have several peaks. Is it your expectation that this decision is going to have to be taken every time a peak is expected?
Well, in fact, in as far as we are concerned, we are just taking this as a tentative arrangement because this is not necessarily a holiday that we are closing from the 1st to the 2nd. It must be informed by the situation. Hence, one of our submissions to the minister is that we need to get assessment once after 2 weeks. We need to meet and sit down and see where we are. Like, for instance, if tomorrow it can be reported that there are 2,000 people, the number of fatalities is 2,000. You cannot then say tomorrow schools must be reopened. We need to assess the situation because this situation is medically informed. That is why it needs to be monitored. We can't just be stereotyped and say we are opening and closing on a specific day.
All right, Allan Thompson from National Teachers Union, thank you very much for your time this morning.